Harry's Wife, Part 104.2. She is bad for the world's mental health. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, and I dare say there was much nodding as you thought, fucking A, she's bad for the world's mental health, she does my nut in. I've had enough of this individual and her ways and behaviours. Nevertheless, the fact is, this bears greater examination as to the declaration that she is bad for the world's mental health. Imagine that. Imagine that you have been told that you as a person are bad, not for your spouse's mental health, or your friend's mental health, or your family's mental health, but the fact that you are branded as poor for the world's mental health. Where has this come from? Well, an article written by Alexandra Shulman for the Daily Mail has the title, "Harry's Wife is Staggeringly Good at Giving Poor Advice." She's poor at providing advice because she has no emotional empathy and a low cognitive function. She's also deluded. I am very effective at providing you with information. I don't like to really call it advice, because I'm just telling you the way that it is, and you can make your mind up as to whether you apply it or not. The fact is, if you don't, I simply don't care, because you're the one that's left with the problem, not me. I will still sleep the sleep of the righteous, whereas you're the one that's likely to have to deal with the problems of continuing to interact with the narcissist, contrary to the information that has been provided to you. Devoid of any emotional empathy, focused on evidence and logic, that's why my work is unrivaled. All I care about is ensuring that you're given the right information. And that's what I do through these videos, through my books, through my blog articles, and of course in consultation. Naturally, I prefer it if you follow my information, because then you will win. And I love to win, because your win is my win, because you followed what I told you to do. But by the same token, if you don't, then of course, there's no accountability lying with me. I gave you the right information, you didn't take it. And therefore, the problem and the blame naturally rests with you. There are many that provide advice, and they provide shitty advice. Why? They don't know what they're talking about. They don't recognize what it is in front of them. And with regard to the area of narcissism, there are many that hold themselves as having some expertise when they perpetuate myths, incorrect information, and furthermore, have huge gaps in their knowledge. Why? Well, some haven't experienced the dynamic and therefore aren't able to talk about it. Others are unaware mid-range narcissists who believe that they're victims and therefore continue to perpetuate particular myths about narcissists from that skewed perspective. As an aware narcissist and an aware psychopath, I can tell you just how it is. And, of course, you will naturally think, well, that is going to be from your perspective. Of course it is. That's the whole point of you listening to me, because you're interested in what my perspective is. And the vast majority of my valuable viewers are of people of intelligence, and therefore they are able to evaluate the impact of my information on their own experience and realize, yes, this does work, that makes sense, and you evaluate it thus. You don't have to like me. Many of you do, because of my natural charm and humour. You don't have to like what I tell you either, but you do have to understand it and apply it. And that's one of the advantages that I have in the provision of excellent information. Whereas Harry's wife, she thinks she knows things when she doesn't, because she's propelled by that delusion and she doesn't know herself. Although she is in her 40s, she has had actually rather limited experience of the world, but believes that she knows so much about it. She believes that she's a bananatarian, a politician, an empathic individual. She believes that she's multi-talented, whereas the actual evidence points to the fact that she is not. She also, because she lacks boundary recognition, is prone to keep telling people that you ought to do this, when actually she should keep her nose out. Because she has no actual expertise or talent, her narcissism operates with repeated beigeness and word salads, which mean that she says a lot without telling you anything. She goes on without providing you anything that's actually meaningful, tangible, or useful, and indeed will often provide information and advice that's downright ridiculous and unhelpful. She wants to help because her narcissism causes her to believe that she cares, albeit she doesn't. It deludes her in that way because that's an effective facade to put forward to the world to enable her to assert control over people, draw the lifeblood that is fuel, and furthermore, enable her to acquire those character traits and residual benefits. But she doesn't care at all. She just doesn't realise this. But what does Shulman have to write? She states as follows: "Many things make me wonder whether Harry's wife is bad for my mental health. One of them is the fact that having set herself up as a leader of women, an oracle of feminine power, and a guide through the maze of prejudice that we, and of course she too, find corralled against us, she then so staggeringly misses the point. Her misreading of the world is so delusionary that it makes one gaslight oneself. In her latest archetype, Podcrap, she addresses the issue of whether women can be allowed to be clear and direct and set boundaries without being called difficult. As a woman who was a boss, although I hate that word, for several decades, if there was one description of my time as head girl at Vogue that I heard repeatedly, it was that I was direct and decisive. People occasionally left my office in tears if I had to fire them or make them redundant, and incidentally I'd invariably had a sleepless night beforehand. Or if I didn't like something my staff had produced, they would always be allowed to defend it, even if in the end they would round afterwards at my bad judgment. And there are others, even now that I have no office to lead, who find my inability to sugarcoat and people-please rather tiresome, or, at times, abrasive. But I don't think anyone has ever thought me a bully, as Harry and Harry's wife were claimed to be by some royal staff they previously worked with, claims they deny. Yes, sometimes people are thrown by a straight-talking woman in a way they aren't with men. But Harry's wife naturally fails to address the far more relevant issue of how you behave regardless of your gender. Of course, it's important to be clear with work colleagues so as to get your message across, and occasionally you have to criticize. Yet that doesn't mean undermining and intimidating. It doesn't mean making others feel weakened as you demonstrate your strength. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't treat others exactly how you'd want to be treated yourself. Harry's wife seems obsessed with what she sees as the twin disadvantages of being a woman and being mixed race, and indeed, what she does is utilize that as part of her victim mentality of being a narcissist. The article continues. Her podcasts deliver a relentless California-style rant, soft-voiced whining that is intended to bolster women's self-image. But all they do is give the impression that her reading of the world is utterly narcissistic as she doles out the poor advice and observations of a marshmallow. Scathing indeed, and, although it doesn't go into great detail, it does demonstrate that yet again there's another individual that sees the way that she does out her advice is unhelpful, hypocritical, and so forth. Below the line, Kerry Kai comments, "No one needs advice from Harry's wife," and Harry lacks MLF, hopefully nobody listens anymore. Viking 2 replies, "Nobody listened in the first place, somehow Spotify fudging the figures." Kingdom 222, "Power in the wrong hands is very dangerous." KTE, "They could have had it all." King Tut, "That headline is great." Dufour replies, "And 100% correct." Behrens, "Brilliant article." MC63, "Strange that Harry, since meeting with Harry's wife, has lost the ability to readily smile as he once used to." Hellebore replies to that, "He looked such a happy bloke until he married her. Now he's utterly miserable." J.N. Wiltshire, "Yes, his twinkly eyes, his ready smile and lovely attitude are all gone. In their place, a miserable, petulant, angry look, confirming just how happy he actually is." Joe Bloggs of Essex, "Sadly, he is now completely lacking context in his life. He, no doubt, constantly hears how bad his family is from Harry's wife, and has no one who trusts him enough on his family side to speak up. Jane Rachel, I thought that. Now he always looks angry or depressed, whereas years ago, especially around his family, he always looked genuinely happy. Doug Matelot, depression, desperation. I'm sure he's going to have a massive breakdown eventually, and Harry's wife will be just too flaky, mature, and inexperienced to support him. Very sad ending, I think. But Khan sees it more clearly. Coercive control at work. Relax TV. The only people Harry's wife will influence are the very gullible. Politically betrayed, Harry's wife is staggeringly good at doing nothing worthwhile. Boneless Kipper, tell me again who Harry's wife had to be charged of. The staff weren't employed by her, they were employed by the palace. Any discipline that had to be done should not have been done by her. Alticus, both a pair of idiots. Next. IZB, she's created this role for herself as she wants to be important, not realising that we the people don't want her in it. They said they wanted privacy, but just love being in the headlines. Kind intent. Staggeringly good depends on your audience, and anyone with a modicum of common sense would not listen to baloney. Hacked off 2020. Absolutely spot on. And that is what everyone has now realised and why they are panicking. Leisure Lady, great article. Harry's wife should be saying, if you want to get where I am, marry a vulnerable prince. Here, once again, people see the change in Prince Harry and what has happened to him as a consequence of the grip that Harry's wife has upon him. But also, this article highlights the fact that Harry's wife thinks that she knows so much that she can convey to people, but as we have seen, she knows nothing. But it also demonstrates the dangerous position she gets herself into. As a narcissist that has climbed a greasy pole, there are those that listen to her, and I know that many of you have the exasperation of running into these dullards and dunderheads on a repeated basis on social media, although, of course, their numbers are dwindling. Harry's wife is indeed bad for the world's mental health. She gives out the wrong information, and she causes many people to become tired of her behaviour, but also, in some instances, to cause individuals to doubt themselves as to whether they are right, given the popularity that she seemed to at least once amass. Now, people are more encouraged as they see more and more of the behaviours being exposed, and they are able to draw comfort from more and more people who, just like the author of this article, are writing about how she is a nuisance, unpleasant, and bad for the world's mental health. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.